Have you ever been to a genealogy conference or event, either virtually or in person? That's what we're talking about today. I'm Krista Cowan. I'm the corporate genealogist here at Ancestry, and this is part of our Ancestry Wednesday virtual event series. Some of you are joining us here live on Zoom, and many of you are probably watching this later as a recorded video on the Ancestry YouTube channel. Welcome to all of you. Whether you're watching live or on YouTube, in the live chat or the YouTube comments, I would love it if you would answer this question. If you have ever been to a genealogical conference or event, I would love for you to share with everybody which one is your favorite. Maybe it's a particular conference hosted by a particular organization, or maybe it was just like one particular year or one particular event that you went to. I will share with you mine. For years, in Southern California, in Burbank, California, there was a conference held by the Southern California Genealogical Society, and it was my favorite event every year. I looked forward to going. Ancestry had a booth. I got to speak at several of those events, but the vibe was just so fun. They always had a theme. Sometimes people dressed up. There was music, there was entertainment, and of course, there was a lot of genealogical classes and learning that was happening at that event. We would have game nights in the bar. We would gather together as genealogy bloggers and just really get to know each other as a community. Now, unfortunately, that event was discontinued during 2020 and has not come back. But there are other genealogical conferences and events that have been long-standing traditions in this industry. And so today, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm super curious to see what some of you are sharing in the chat. Looks like a lot of you love RootsTech. We're going to talk about that today. Several of you are mentioning FGS. FGS, of course, and NGS, so the Federation of Genealogical Societies, which was an international organization, and the National Genealogical Society here in the United States. They merged a few years ago. They used to have two separate events. Now they have one event. We're going to talk about that today. Neil says here, the Who Do You Think You Are show in the UK in 2014. Neil, I think I was at that exact event. Lots and lots of RootsTech here. Some of you have attended some state genealogical society conferences or seminars, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, Julia talking about Jamboree, the Southern California Genealogy Jamboree. We all miss it. Some of you have never attended a conference or an event, and so I'm hoping today you'll be inspired both by our community here as they share, but also some of the things I'm going to share. So here's what we're going to cover in our time together today. I don't know if it will take a full hour like usual, but we'll see. So first, we're going to talk about why you might want to attend a genealogical conference or an event. Second, we're going to talk about which genealogical conferences and events you might be interested in attending. I'll share some of my favorites. Of course, you can read through the comments and see what some of your fellow attendees are sharing as some of their favorites. I'll also, as part of that, share where you can go to find more about other conferences and events. And then finally, I'll share just a little bit about what you can expect from those events, how to prepare for them best, and when to know when you're ready for different kinds of events. So we're going to start off by talking about why you might want to attend. One of the reasons I love genealogical conferences is because, especially when you attend in person, it opens your eyes to how big this industry really is. We are a community of family historians, people who are interested in family history. Now, I don't know what your experience is like in your family, but in my family, My dad is my family history research partner. We get together every Sunday night over FaceTime. We call each other on the phone and put the phone right in between our two monitors. I'm at my house, he's at his house in a different state. And I call him at 9:30 p.m. because we're night owls. It is 8:30 p.m. his time, and we spend 4 to 5 hours every Sunday night. Now, we've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, I think, and we've only missed 4 times in that whole time. Now, sometimes when I'm traveling, if I'm overseas or if he's overseas, or if, I'm just in a different time zone that's a little later, I'll call him earlier in his day so that we can get in our few hours of research. We typically tend to focus on family history or our DNA matches. So new Ancestry DNA matches that have come in during the week, we dive in and try to figure out who they are and how we place it in our tree. It sometimes feels a little bit like we're working on a giant jigsaw puzzle together virtually. So I have that connection in my life, and I'm so, so grateful for it. My mom, her involvement in family history, she loves photography, photos. As a matter of fact, I was just helping her, I think it was last night or the night before. My parents are visiting right now, to make sure she had the Ancestry mobile app on her phone, because in the Ancestry mobile app is a photo scanner. And if you've got a nice phone, they have really, really good cameras in them now. The cameras in our phones now are better than cameras were a decade ago. And so you can actually scan photos using your phone directly in the Ancestry mobile app Memories tab. And so I was walking her through how to do that. This may be the second or third time I've walked her through that, but some of us just need that repetition, and I'm happy to provide that. And so that's how she's involved, and she's always interested in that. So I recognize that I am very lucky that I have people in my life who are interested in family history. I also recognize that there are some of us who don't have that. We start talking about family history and people roll their eyes or they tune us out because they're just not as interested or nerdy about it as we are. So, the number one thing that I love about genealogical conferences and events is that we get to gather in person with our people. People who get why we love this so much, or why we're so interested and curious in what happened to our great, great, great grandparents 200 years ago. And so that camaraderie, that recognition of each other, the opportunity to meet one another and share is always a fantastic part of the experience. And most of the conference organizers do a really great job of making sure that there is opportunity and space for that kind of interaction. Now, if you're a huge introvert, that might feel a little bit overwhelming. So rather than starting at RootsTech, maybe you want to start at your local genealogical society so that you're not as overwhelmed by the tens of thousands of people who are attending this conference. Maybe you're just gathering with 15 or 20 people in your local community. So there's lots of different levels at which you can participate based on your personal personality and your comfort level. Maybe you could work your way up to RootsTech because it has become probably my new favorite conference. So that is one reason to attend genealogical conferences and events. Another reason is because at most of these events, there is some form of an exhibit hall. Now, at RootsTech, the exhibit hall is massive. You walk in the front doors and you'll see Ancestry and Family Search right there, front and center. And Ancestry actually builds a house on the exhibit hall show floor at RootsTech with a living room and a sitting room and a backyard and a kitchen table and the whole 9 yards because we want people to come in and sit down and interact. We have hundreds of Ancestry employees that come to man or staff that booth so that you have the opportunity to interact with people and ask questions and share information and learn about the new things that we're doing here here at Ancestry. And so a lot of the different companies and organizations in the family history space who offer different kinds of services show up in the exhibit halls at these conferences. And so it's a great opportunity to just kind of roam the aisles and talk to some of these companies and learn about a couple of my favorites. One of them is Storyworth is a company that we did this for my parents for Christmas one year. We had them, we bought Storyworth for them. And what it did is it emailed them a question every week, and then they emailed their response back. And at the end of the year, they had 52 little stories about themselves. And we, their children, we got to pick which questions were asked. And so we decided the questions, we decided the order, and then my parents just answered them. And each of them sent in their answers. The next year, my mother spent going through their responses, doing some editing, adding photos. And then the next year for Christmas, all of us got a copy of that book. And it is one of my prized treasured possessions because it is questions that we asked them that we really wanted to know about our childhood, about their childhood, about family relationships. So that is just an example of the kinds of companies that you will find at these genealogy conferences. And if you're not, if you want to ask more questions or touch the product or learn more about it, that's the perfect opportunity to do that. Another example is a company called Family Chart Masters. They've been around in the industry for 20 years, and the owner was going to retire a few years ago and close the business down. And I couldn't let that happen because I've been a customer of theirs for 15 years. And so I bought the company. And so my brother and sister-in-law run it, and they're there in the exhibit hall. They sell gorgeous family tree charts, either blank ones or charts you can fill, have your ancestry data just printed on, or they have graphic designers on staff that can create a fully beautiful work of art for your home based on your family tree. And so Family Chart Masters is another one of those companies you'll find. So just a couple of examples. There's going to be some new companies with Ancestry this year at RootsTech. So Ancestry recently purchased a company called iMemories down in Arizona. They're a company that can scan photos and slides. They can digitize old audio tapes and videotapes and reel-to-reels or any kind of digital or any kind of media that you have. They can turn it into something digital. And so Ancestry just purchased that company last year. And just this morning, we publicly launched Ancestry Preserve. And so you can buy one of those kits, load it up with the stuff, ship it off. They will return that box to you after they have digitized everything. And it's a really exciting opportunity for us, especially a lot of us who are getting to that age where our parents are moving into retirement homes or passing away. They're downsizing. And so we're inheriting a lot of their stuff. And it's a great opportunity to get some of that stuff digitized. And so Ancestry Preserve will be there at RootsTech this year. So again, just some examples of the kinds of things you will find in an exhibit hall at a conference. It's just this opportunity to see what's out there, see what's available, see what meets a need that you might have. Because you keep your family tree on Ancestry, you do your research on Ancestry, but maybe you also need to know what's happening at the State Archives of Virginia. And sometimes they have a booth there. And if they don't have a booth there in the exhibit hall, the State Historical Society or the State Genealogical Society almost always does. And so you have people there you can talk to from the places where your family history is being researched. So that brings me to the third benefit of attending a genealogical conference or event, which is that you can seek out people who might be able to help you with the brick walls in your family trees. People who run genealogical societies and archives, professional genealogists who understand the nuances of working with those organizations or what records exist where, what records have already been digitized and are available on Ancestry or Family Search, what records are not digitized yet and are only available in an original archive. And if you can't travel there, they can connect you with someone who does lookups in that archive that travels there, 2 or 3 times a month or 2 or 3 times a week and can do some research for you. So lots of different ways to network and get the information that you need that's going to help you with those brick walls. So that's another thing I love about genealogical conferences. Now, interestingly enough, you may have noticed I've shared all the things that I love about genealogical conferences and events, and I haven't talked yet about the classes, because the classes are what a lot of people think about as kind of the foundational reason to hold a conference. But I find that some of those other benefits actually far outweigh some of the classes. And that's part of that is because education has become pretty democratized. And what I mean by that is you show up here every Wednesday when I do these Ancestry Wednesday virtual events. And so you can get a lot of the education and knowledge you need through YouTube videos here on the Ancestry YouTube channel, or on my personal YouTube channel, or over on Nika Smith's personal YouTube channel, or Connie Knox, or Amy Cross. Like, there are a lot of genealogy YouTubers who are providing education. Not only that, a lot of local genealogical societies provide online education as well. So the classes are important, and I'm not going to skip over them, but that's not the primary reason that we gather in person for genealogical conferences and events. We tend to do that more for the community, the exposure to different things happening in the genealogy industry, and for that networking. Now let's talk about those classes. A lot of genealogical conferences, big or small, offer a cadence of classes. So let's start with the small, and then we'll work our way up to the big. Most local genealogical societies have in-person meetings about once a month. They sometimes also offer that in-person education virtually. They'll stream it or provide it some other way. So what I would recommend is that you just do a quick internet search for your local genealogical society. So you live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan Genealogical Society. You live in, Biloxi, Mississippi, Biloxi Genealogical Society. I would also recommend that you think about places where your ancestors have lived. Hawkins County, Tennessee, Genealogical Society. Northwest Arkansas, Genealogical Society. So do some internet searches and see what genealogical societies exist in the areas you live, so you have a place to gather, or in the areas where your ancestors lived, so you can learn more about doing research in what records exist in that place. Okay. Now, there are also genealogical societies for different ethnic groups. So, for example, I sit on the board of directors for the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. There are nearly 100 Jewish genealogical societies around the world, the vast majority of which are concentrated here in the United States. And so if you have Jewish ancestry, whether you grew up knowing you were Jewish or whether you took a DNA test and discovered you were Jewish, it's an ethno-religion, that's what it's called. That is really unique research in some ways. And so these genealogical societies provide education around how to do that research. That organization, AAHGS, they are going to be in the exhibit hall at RootsTech. And so you can talk to them, you can get a list of all their local societies, or you can just go to their website. I'll show you that here in just a minute, because they also hold a conference every year. Now, there is also the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society here in the United States. We call it AAHGS, AAHGS. And they have local chapters all over the country, as well as an umbrella organization. They also host a conference. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. There are genealogical societies for Germans from Russia. There is the Eastern European Federation of Family History Societies. I think they call it the Federation of Eastern European Historical Societies. FIEFS is their initials. So depending on what ethnic group your family tree connects you to, you have options that you can do a little bit of research on to see what societies exist. Now, in addition to holding monthly meetings, many of these smaller societies and organizations also hold either an annual conference or an annual conference, and sometimes also some kind of a seminar. So the difference between a conference and a seminar. A conference is what I just described earlier. There's an exhibit hall, there are classes, there are like a lot of networking opportunities. You have lots of options and things to choose from to be part of that event. A seminar tends to be very specifically themed and a little bit more like a classroom learning situation where you do a deep dive into a particular topic. So conferences and seminars, a lot of societies offer one of each during the year, or sometimes they'll rotate. One year they'll do a conference and then the next year they will do a seminar. So that's kind of the local genealogical societies, kind of moving your way up to some of those national organizations. And then you have these big conferences that are held on a pretty specific cadence. The classes that are provided at a big conference, right? At a local conference, you may only have an option of 1 or 2 classes per hour throughout the day or 2 of the conference to choose from. But at a national conference like RootsTech or NGS, you're going to have dozens of classes to choose from every hour. And usually those conferences are going to run for several days, right? A local conference might just be 1 day or a day and a half. RootsTech is 3 days long. And so there's classes all day, every day from like 8 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. And you have a lot of options to choose from every hour. Now, we'll look at the schedule for RootsTech in just a minute, but to give you an idea, so for example, I'm teaching 4 classes at RootsTech in March. And so I'm teaching 2 classes for Ancestry. So they're Ancestry organizationally sponsored classes about Ancestry. And then I'm teaching 2 classes with other individuals in the family history community. One with Sunny Morton, who is the editor of the Family Tree Magazine, and Kurt Witcher, who is the director of the Allen County Public Library. We're doing a panel on how to do family interviews. And then I'm also teaching a class with Diane Southard, she's known as Your DNA Guide. She has some brilliant courses that she sells about DNA and a membership program about how to dive into your DNA and make discoveries. And then Janet Havorka, who is a past president of the State Genealogical Association here in Utah, and also the former owner of Family Chart Masters. And we have a whole methodology we developed about breaking through brick walls called the Search Party. And every year we do one of the classes at RootsTech about a different step in that methodology that we created. And so those are the 4 classes that I will be teaching at RootsTech this year. And because RootsTech as a conference, they have about anywhere from 15 to 20,000 people who show up in person to this event, and then they stream it out to the world. And so some of the classes are only available in person. And so when you ask, well, why would I want to go to an in-person conference? That is one of the other reasons, because some of those classes are only available for people who come in person. Some are streamed live, some are recorded and made available later, but that is kind of how that conference education is handled. So those are the reasons why you might want to attend a genealogical conference. Now, in the comments here in the chat here on the live, or in the comments on YouTube if you're watching, I would love if you've been to a genealogical conference and you have some other reason why you love conferences and events, I would love for you to share it with the rest of us. And so there you go. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen now, and we are going to walk through just a few of the events that are available. Now, there are a lot of events available in a lot of places, and I only have time to highlight a few of them, and you're going to probably want to write down the URL for these. If some of our fabulous member support community is watching, I suspect Michelle, then if you could maybe copy the URL into the chat for those watching live today, you'll have those links available for you as well. So we're going to start with RootsTech. RootsTech is the largest genealogical conference in the world. I mentioned 15 to 20,000 people who show up live at that event. But what you may or may not know is that they also stream it live to 4 million viewers in about 90 countries around the world. And so because of that, they have hosts in different languages who are simultaneously, here's a panel of the hosts, right? In French and Portuguese and Japanese and Korean, and I've met most of them, so I'm trying to see what other languages. German, so they have hosts that are hosting this event for the live audience in all of those different languages as well. So this year, RootsTech is March 5th, 6th, and 7th. March 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. This particular conference is held in Salt Lake City every year at the convention center right downtown. And the really cool benefit of that is that it is exactly 1 block away from the largest genealogical library in the world, which of course is the Family Search Library. Family Search has this physical building that I spent a lot of time in my teenage years in, where they have materials in their facility that have not been digitized yet. There are also things available in the Family Search Library that are only available in the library online. So you may have noticed, I don't know if you have or not, but if you're ever on Family Search, sometimes you'll go to view one of their records and you'll get this little thing that pops up that says this record can only be viewed in a Family Search library or center. And so you can go on the computers in their facility and access those records. That's because of licensing restrictions. Family Search, Ancestry, we don't own the genealogical records that we have on our website. That's why there's some restrictions around what you can and can't do with those records, is because those records are owned by the original record holders. And in Ancestry and Family Search, we license those records from those entities to publish them online. And that entity gets to decide what the restrictions are on those records. So for example, on Ancestry, you cannot download a record and then re-upload it or publish it online anywhere else. That's part of the terms and conditions. You can download almost all of the records on Ancestry. There's a couple of organizations who have not even allowed us to let you do that. But you can download them for your personal computer, but publishing them back to the website, that is a violation of the terms and conditions because of the license agreements that Ancestry has in place with those original record owners. Similarly, Family Search has license agreements in place with the original record owners, and that doesn't allow them to display them on the internet. So you know a record exists. You can maybe see like a little fuzzy thumbnail of it, but when you go to view the image, it says you can only view this in a Family Search library or center. And so you can go to the Family Search library. And so here's my little tip about RootsTech. if you're coming, and I highly suggest everybody does it at least once in their life, I strongly suggest you plan time either before or after to spend a day or two or three in the family history library. And so you're going to want to do some research, see what records are only available there, both on digitized and not digitized. Make a list of them so that you can make the most of your time there. Now, a lot of people like to come in on like a Monday and then work in the library on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the conference, of course, is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But you can kind of decide how you want to do that. Some people like to go to the conference Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The library is closed on Sunday, but that's a good thing because then you can like give your brain a break after all the things you've put in it during the conference and hit the library on the next Monday fresh and apply all the things that you've learned at the conference. Maybe spend Monday and Tuesday in the library and fly home Tuesday night or Wednesday. So that's kind of how RootsTech works and where it is and how you might want to participate or engage in that. Now, almost all conferences have a cost. So there's not just the cost of getting here and the cost of staying here, like, in a hotel, but also there is a registration fee. So you can go to either familysearch.org/RootsTech, or you can go to rootstech.org. Either one will take you to this page. And here is where you can learn more about the conference. So you can register for the in-person event. And as you can see here, this is the pricing this year. It's $129 to attend for all 3 days, or $79 to just come for one day. So that's if you want to attend in person. You also can register for the online event, and the online event is free. But remember, not all of the classes are streamed live. There's only one class streamed live per hour of the conference. And then some of the classes are also recorded and made available live or made available recorded later. Okay. So depending on what works best for your schedule, in person or online. Now, if you are still on the fence or trying to decide if it's worth your time or effort, RootsTech did just recently publish the class schedule. And so you can come in here and there's a couple of different ways to explore the class schedule. You can explore it by speaker. So you could come in here and you could see all 245 speakers for the 3 days. And you could type in a name like, oh, I don't know, Krista Cowan. That's C-R-I-S-T-A, C, no H. I blame my father for that spelling. And you could see exactly which classes Krista is teaching. So here are the 2 classes I am teaching on Thursday, one at 9:30 in the morning, one at 1:30 in the afternoon. And then on Friday, I am also teaching 2 classes, one at 9:30 in the morning and one at 4:30 in the afternoon. So if you decide you want to attend those classes, you can just click this giant schedule button. It will add those classes to your schedule. This is where you can also see whether that class is available online or not. So if the class is not available online, that means it is not being recorded. Some of the classes are online. So you can see here it says online, which means that is a class that will be streaming. And then some of the classes will have the word recorded, which means that it will be recorded and made available later. Okay, so that is how you can tell what the schedule of classes is. You can also explore this set of classes. Let me reset those filters. There we go. You can explore them by skill level. So if you're a beginner genealogist or if you're an advanced genealogist and you want to see, does this event have something for me at my skill level? You can see exactly what's available. And you can also explore it by topic. And so you can see here 39 different topics. And there are so many topics that are covered at RootsTech. It is probably one of the most globally comprehensive genealogical conferences, not just the largest, but also they do a really great job of making sure that there is content for a wide variety of people doing research in different parts of the world. So that is RootsTech. Okay, if you are watching this live, you may have questions about RootsTech. Be sure to peruse through the chat because I suspect some of your fellow viewers here have attended RootsTech and they may have already answered some of your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, read the comments, but also ask your question if you don't see an answer. I check in with those comments over on YouTube about once a week or so and do try to respond to those as needed. Okay, so that is the RootsTech conference. Again, it is held once a year, typically the first weekend of March, always in downtown Salt Lake City. Next up is the National Genealogical Society here in the United States. Now, the National Genealogical Society, as I mentioned several years ago, merged with the Federation of Genealogical Societies. Here's what that means. The Federation of Genealogical Societies was an umbrella organization for most of the genealogical societies in the world. They joined that as a member organization. That the Federation provided training for how to run local genealogical societies. They also have connections with librarians and archivists and individuals who are running services for genealogists. These two organizations merged, and so NGS has taken on a lot of those responsibilities. So NGS does a lot all year long. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite resources from NGS is what is called the Q. It stands for the quarterly. So quarterly, once every 3 months, the National Genealogical Society puts out an academic publication where you can, if you are ready to take your family history to like an advanced level, you can read basically case studies of how professional and super advanced genealogists have solved brick walls. And they're pretty dense. So if you're a beginner, I don't recommend it. But if you are curious about becoming a professional, or if you're kind of intermediate level and curious to see where your skills might lie, getting your hands on an edition of the Q is a good way to kind of test that or dip your toe in those waters. I get the Q once a quarter. I read it cover to cover. I study the footnotes. I look up the genealogists who wrote those articles and friend them on social media so that I can follow them and other things they're doing. Those are also the names of like the more advanced speakers that I'm looking for when I'm looking for advanced family history education. So that's just one of the other services that NGS offers. And so you can come here to their website is NGS, so it stands for National Genealogical Society, ngsgenealogy.org. ngsgenealogy.org, that's their website. And when you get here, you can learn more about their conference as well. So their conference is held once a year, typically in the spring, and it rotates cities. So it's in a different city every year, a different U.S. city, because this is the National Genealogical Society for the United States. This year, the conference is being held from the 27th to the 30th of May, and it's being held in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, if you're new to family history, you may not understand what a big deal Fort Wayne, Indiana is for genealogists. In addition to being the home of Johnny Appleseed, it is also the home to the second largest genealogical library in the world. It is called the Allen County Public Library. And the resources available there are vast and growing. The director there, Kurt Witcher, is a brilliant educator and communicator. And so if you ever have the opportunity to hear him speak or teach, like with me at RootsTech, I strongly encourage you to do that. And if you ever have the opportunity to visit the library in Fort Wayne, I encourage you to do that. The NGS conference offers a perfect opportunity to do that. So the conference is held in the convention center, and then the library is just like down the street and around the corner. And very often they'll run shuttles. They do that at RootsTech as well, like little golf cart shuttles back and forth to from the convention center to the library at Family Search. In Allen County, there's often accommodations made for that as well. And so some people will go to the conference and they'll attend the dinners and they'll attend the keynote events and they'll attend the networking opportunities and they'll pick a few classes they want to attend and then they'll just spend the rest of their time in the library. So that's another way to conference that may or may not work with your schedule or your personality, but you can make that decision. So this year, of course, if you watched my Wednesday virtual event 2 weeks ago, you know, is July 4th of this year is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so the theme for NGS this year is America at 250. And that is what they do every year. They come up with a theme, and the theme is what informs the speakers who submit to present at that event. They kind of try to loosely connect to that theme in some way. And so that's another clue you can use to decide if you want to attend that particular conference or not. Now, I will say this, in addition to having access to the library, the conference itself tends to be a little bit more academic than other genealogical conferences. Now, they always have a beginner track. This year, I suspect they will, I think they did last year too, have an AI track. So there's always innovation and new things, but they rely very heavily on the Board for Certification of Genealogists, on their certified genealogists, and they very often will have tracks of lectures from those individuals. So it tends to be just a little bit more advanced and a little bit more academic in some of the tracks. And then, of course, always have those beginner tracks available. The sessions, again, you can just check the schedule and see what is of interest to you. They also do workshops. So it costs a little bit extra. So you pay for the conference, which I don't even know how much it is this year. I'd have to, let's see, attend. I don't think they've opened registration yet. Maybe they have. Let's check it out. Register. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So in-person registration, if you are a member of the NGS organization, it is $397. If you are not a member, it is $457. And those are the early bird rate, which is good through February. And then after that, the price increases, it looks like, by about $50, by exactly $50. Okay. And this conference, so the 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th is a 4-day event. So RootsTech is a 3-day event. This conference is a 4-day event. And so that gives you kind of an idea of pricing. And then the schedule, of course, there's different kinds of sessions, and you can work your way through that to see if that is of interest to you. So that is the National Genealogical Society Conference. Again, I attend that conference every year as a representative of Ancestry. I'm usually sitting at a table. Their exhibit hall is significantly smaller than the one at RootsTech. But there still often is as many vendors. We just get little tables. So instead of building a house like we do at RootsTech, at NGS, we usually just get like a, 8 or 10-foot table, and it's usually myself and Nika or other people. So if you've ever wanted to meet me or sit and have a conversation with me, some of these smaller conferences are a better way to do that. Nika will talk your ear off and listen and ask you all the questions about your research. She is also delightful, and I love hanging out with her when we go to these events. So that is NGS. The third major conference that Ancestry sponsors and attends every year is the International Conference on Jewish Genealogy, and it is hosted by the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. This conference rotates cities in the world. So it's been in Philadelphia and London. It's been in Warsaw, Poland, and Seattle, Washington, and it's been in Jerusalem, in Israel. It's been in Los Angeles, and last year it was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This year, for I think only the second or third time, it's going to be a fully virtual conference. And so it's going to be online and it's going to be in October, October 18th, 19th, and 20th. And registration is, I don't think it's open yet. So I think it's opening very soon. And so the schedule hasn't been published yet. None of that information is available because it's a little later in the year. But you can, I think, sign up for their mailing list so that you can be notified when that happens. Here's the difference with this conference. This conference is very class heavy, so lots of different tracks to choose from every hour over the few days. It is also very tour heavy when it is in person. So they always try to pick cities that are rich in Jewish heritage, and they'll do tours to like the local cemeteries or the local synagogues or the local historical places of interest to people who are who have Jewish heritage. So that their in-person conferences, very tour heavy. Their online classes, very global. So lots of different opportunities to learn about what records exist. And so even if you don't have Jewish heritage, I would strongly encourage you to bookmark this website, IAJGS.org, and then the conference link takes you here to see the schedule when it publishes. Excuse me. Because if you have ancestry from Europe, particularly from places in Central or Eastern Europe, there's often classes at the conference about records from those places that will apply universally, whether you are Jewish or not. So it might be something that if there's enough classes of interest to you, you might want to consider registering for and attending this particular conference. Okay. Again, that's IAJGS.org. Okay. And then the last major conference that I want to talk about is the AAHGS conference, or the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. This, again, is an umbrella organization that serves local chapters all over the United States. And this particular organization hosts a conference every year. Now, they have not yet published the dates for their 2026 conference, nor have they published the location. But you can get an idea for what might be available by looking at their past conferences. It is also typically held in October. You can see Ancestry, of course, is one of the sponsors of this event. You can look at some of the class schedules to see what kinds of things that they offered. I don't remember where, I think the 45th conference was held online. This last year, the conference was held in Charleston, South Carolina. I attended that conference, and you can, again, just kind of look through, get some ideas for what happens at the conference, what kinds of things they focus on. You can look at the event schedule to see what kinds of classes they typically have, so that when the 2026 conference is announced, if you are interested, you will have that available to you. Now, like most genealogical societies, they also have resources and other things available. They do also have a chapter finder that will help you find, see if there's a local chapter somewhere near you that you could join or participate in that might offer those monthly classes. Okay, so those are the 4 major genealogical conferences that Ancestry sponsors every year. And we show up, we have a table in the exhibit hall or house. We teach classes. We're available to answer questions. So it's a really great opportunity to come and interact with us. And I would love it if you would. So again, that's RootsTech, the National Genealogical Society Conference, the Jewish Genealogical Conference and the African American Genealogical Conference. There are, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of other conferences. Local genealogical societies host them, but also state genealogical societies or county genealogical societies in the UK or provincial genealogical societies for our friends in Canada, right? So no matter where you live in the world, I've used US examples because of Ancestry's presence there, but there are conferences and events. And so if you just do an internet search, right, the Ohio Genealogical Society. I have roots in Ohio on my dad's side of the family tree. And so I might be interested in what they're doing at the end of April in Sharonville, Ohio, and might be interested in either attending that conference in person or looking to see if they have an online option to see if I can purchase a ticket to watch some of the streaming videos. The Texas State Genealogical Society. They have, again, like a really great website with a lot of great resources. They have lots of chapters around the state of the different local genealogical societies, and they put on a few different conferences and events. Now, they have not, it looks like, announced their 2026 conference yet, but you can, again, go look at the 2025 conference to get a feel for what it's like and what they offer. And they do offer another kind of program. So in this case, they offer a genealogy essentials program. So if you're, a beginner, you have that option. You also always have the option of joining us here on the second Wednesday of every month, because I do a beginner series on the second Wednesday of every month. Now, the last couple of websites that I want to share with you, one is my personal website. So if you ever get overwhelmed and aren't sure who's going to be where, I'm in charge of conferences and events for Ancestry. I'm over the strategy for that. And so I attend almost all of them. And so if you just go to KristaCowan.com and search for the calendar, you'll get to this page. And here you'll see a list of the upcoming conferences and events that I'm going to be attending with links directly to those websites. So you can find that there. That's just one place to keep up. The other place that you can go, of course, always for family history education is right here. So if you're here live, you know how to get here because you're here, right? Ancestry.com/education. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you may have just randomly come across this video doing an internet search or looking through the videos on the Ancestry YouTube channel. So I want to make sure you know how to get to this page. Ancestry.com/education. At the top of that page, you're always going to see our upcoming 3 Wednesday live virtual events. This is the one we're on today. Next week, we are going to be doing a DNA class all about why you won't match everyone that you're related to. And then Nika will be joining us for the first Wednesday of February, doing a virtual event as a kickoff for Black History Month. If you scroll past, and you do have to register for these. They're free, but you have to register for them if you want to attend live, because that's how we get you the Zoom link. But if you scroll down past that, you'll see Nika and I there on our virtual events that we put the recordings of those virtual events and we make them available here on this same page. So those are just some of your opportunities for education. I came across a Facebook post in one of the genealogy Facebook groups yesterday, actually. And this guy was complaining about how Ancestry never educates their customers. And I said, hey, come to our Wednesday virtual events. And he said, I've been a member of Ancestry for over 10 years and I didn't know these existed. So let me just say thank you. thank you for knowing that I exist. Thank you for knowing that we here at Ancestry are so like passionate about family history. We are so excited you're here and we want you to be successful. We want you to find your ancestors. We want you to make sure they're really your ancestors. We want you to be able to break through those brick walls and make new discoveries. We want you to find the stories in your family trees, and we want you to be able to share those stories with your family members in a way that they won't roll their eyes. And so we show up here every week, and we show up on the Ancestry Facebook page every other Tuesday. And we send out email newsletters. And I have my own podcast and my own YouTube channel because I can't get enough of trying to show up in places where I think you can find us and learn more about family history and how to be successful and how to enjoy it and how to be more a part of the family history community. And genealogical conferences and events are just another way to do that. And so that's why Ancestry is paying the money to be sponsors for these other organizations that are holding these conferences and events, because we want them to be successful and we want them to be as accessible to you as possible, so that they show up in the times and places when you need them to keep you moving forward on your family history journey. So thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you joined us for this hour. I hope to see you again on another Ancestry Wednesday virtual event, and maybe even in person at one of those genealogical conferences this year. Now, before you go, as always, if you learned something new today, I would love it if you would put it in the chat or in the comments on YouTube. I read through those. Our team reads through those. It helps us continue to provide education for you when we know what it is that you're actually learning, what's resonating with you. And I also firmly believe that if you have to type out what you learned, you're more likely to remember it. So that's what we have for you today. If you would do that before you go. Until next time, I'm Krista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.